Lieutenant James Mitchell gripped the controls of his small scout ship as he flew through the dark space near the outer rim. The stars looked peaceful out here, but James knew better. This was dangerous territory where alien empires fought for control. His job was simple: patrol the area and report back to Earth's defense corps. If he saw anything unusual, the warning alarms started screaming before he even saw them coming. 3 massive warships appeared out of nowhere, their dark purple hulls gleaming under the distant starlight. James cursed under his breath. Veilthians. Of all the alien races he could have run into, these were among the worst. James tried to turn his ship around, but it was too late. Blue energy beams shot out from the alien vessels, wrapping around his scout ship like glowing ropes. His engines died immediately. The ship shook violently as invisible forces pulled him toward the largest Veilthian warship. Through his viewport, James could see the alien ship's docking bay opening like a massive metal mouth. He reached for his emergency beacon, hoping to send a quick message back to Earth, but his control panel sparked and went dead. The Veilthians had shut down all his systems. The Veilthians were feared across the galaxy for good reason, while other alien races relied on laser weapons or plasma cannons. The Veilthians had perfected something much more terrifying: biological warfare. Their purple skin wasn't just for show. It could produce dozens of different toxins, each one deadly enough to kill most living creatures in seconds. They had wiped out entire planets without firing a single shot, just by releasing their poisons into the air. As his ship was dragged into the alien docking bay, James tried to stay calm. He had trained for capture scenarios, but never by aliens like these. The docking bay doors slammed shut behind him with a loud clang that echoed through his ship. Red gas began filling the bay. James held his breath, but he knew it was pointless. Within moments, his vision started to blur. The last thing he saw was tall purple figures in protective suits approaching his ship. When James woke up, everything hurt. His head pounded like someone was hitting it with a hammer. His mouth tasted like metal, and his vision was fuzzy. As his eyes slowly focused, he realized he was lying on a cold metal table. Thick straps held his arms and legs in place. No matter how hard he pulled, he couldn't move. The room around him looked like a twisted version of a hospital. Strange. Machines lined the walls, their screens showing alien symbols that pulsed and changed colors. Tubes and wires hung from the ceiling like mechanical vines. The air smelled sharp and chemical, making his nose burn with each breath. Commander Thale stood at the foot of the table, his purple skin almost glowing under the bright lights. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to look right through James. When he smiled, James could see rows of needle-sharp teeth. "The human is awake," Commander Thal said in perfect English, though his voice sounded like gravel grinding together. "Good. I want you conscious for what comes next." Around the room, dozens of Veilthian scientists moved between workstations. They wore white coats similar to human doctors, but their 4 arms allowed them to work on multiple tasks at once. Some were mixing colorful liquids in glass containers. Others were checking readouts on their alien computers. All of them kept glancing at James with what looked like hungry curiosity. Through the transparent walls, James could see into other rooms. More tables, more equipment, and what looked like specimen containers holding things he didn't want to think about. This wasn't just a medical bay. It was a research facility, and he was about to become their newest test subject. "You humans think you're so clever," Commander Thale continued, picking up a syringe filled with bright green liquid. "Always expanding into space, claiming new worlds, acting like you own the galaxy. But you're just soft, weak creatures. Your bodies break. So is it." James tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. Commander Thale noticed and chuckled. "Don't worry, human. You'll have plenty of time to scream. We're going to broadcast your death to every human colony in this sector. They need to learn what happens when primitives venture into Veilthian space." The syringe gleamed under the lights as Commander Thale raised it toward James's arm. The needle pierced James's skin like a hot knife. The green liquid rushed into his bloodstream, and immediately he felt like his entire body was on fire. Every nerve screamed in pain as the Velthian toxin spread through his system. His back arched against the metal table, and he bit down hard on his tongue to keep from crying out. Commander Thale stood beside a wall of monitors, watching James's vital signs with cold satisfaction. The screens showed his heart rate jumping wildly, his blood pressure spiking, his brain activity going crazy. This was exactly what happened to every other species they had tested. First the pain, then the convulsions, then death within minutes. But something was wrong. James's heart rate climbed higher and higher, then suddenly began to slow down. His breathing, which had been rapid and shallow, started to return to normal. The pain was still there, but it wasn't getting worse like it should have been. "What's happening?" Commander Thale demanded, his 4 eyes fixed on the monitors. "Why isn't he dying?" Dr. Kess, the lead scientist, moved closer to the screens. Her purple skin had dark markings that showed she was older and more experienced than the others. She had personally overseen the deaths of thousands of test subjects, from dozens of different species. Never had she seen anything like this. "His body is fighting it," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "Look at these blood samples." She pointed to another screen showing microscopic images. "His immune system is actually attacking our toxin. I've never seen cells move this fast." Commander Thale's face twisted with anger. No primitive human should be able to resist their most basic poison. He grabbed another syringe, this one filled with blue liquid. "Double the dose. Triple it, if you have to." The second injection hit James even harder than the first. This time, he couldn't hold back a scream. The blue toxin felt like acid eating through his muscles. His vision went white with pain, and for a moment he thought he was going to die. Every instinct told him to fight against the straps, to try to escape. But he forced himself to stay still. He needed to conserve his energy. The Velthian scientists gathered around the monitors like excited children watching a magic show. Dr. Kess was taking notes faster than James thought possible with her 4 hands. Other scientists were drawing blood samples and running them through machines that beeped and hummed. "Incredible," one of them whispered. "His white blood cell count is off the charts. It's like his entire immune system just woke up." Hours crawled by like years. James drifted in and out of consciousness as the aliens continued their experiments. Each time he woke up, there was a new needle in his arm and a new type of pain flowing through his body. Red toxin that felt like electricity, yellow poison that made his bones ache, clear liquid that attacked his nervous system. But gradually, something strange began to happen. The pain started to feel familiar. His body began to recognize the toxins before they could do their worst damage. What had been agony became discomfort. What had been torture became merely unpleasant. Dr. Kess noticed it first. "Look at his recovery time," she said, pointing to the latest readouts. The red toxin took 40 minutes to clear his system. The same toxin killed a Zephanian in 30 seconds yesterday. Commander Thale paced back and forth beside the table, his anger growing with each failed attempt to kill the human. "This is impossible. Our toxins have killed billions. They've wiped out entire civilizations." "Perhaps that's the problem," Dr. Kess said quietly. "We've only tested them on advanced species that have been using technology for thousands of years. Their bodies have forgotten how to adapt, how to fight. But humans, ... Double quotes, she paused, studying James with new respect. Humans are still wild, still evolving, still fighting. By the 6th hour, James was barely reacting to the injections at all. His body had learned to process each toxin almost as fast as they could inject it. The monitors showed his vital signs staying steady, no matter what poison they used. The room full of scientists had gone quiet. They watched their instruments in amazement as this single human did something no creature in their recorded history had ever done. He was surviving their bioweapons, not through technology or armor, but through pure biological adaptation. Dr. Kess leaned over James, studying his face. His eyes were alert now, watching her right back. "What are you?" she whispered. James managed a weak smile. "I'm human," he said, "and you just made a very big mistake." By the morning of the third day, James felt different. Not just tired or sore from the endless experiments, but fundamentally changed. His body had transformed into something the Veilthians had never encountered before. What started as desperate survival had become something much more powerful. When Dr. Kess injected him with a purple toxin that morning, James barely felt it. The liquid that should have paralyzed his nervous system within seconds simply flowed through his bloodstream and disappeared. His immune system grabbed it, broke it apart, and filed away the information for future use. It was like his body had become a living computer, learning and adapting with each attack. "Impossible, Doctor," Kess muttered, checking her instruments for the third time. "This toxin liquefies internal organs in most species. He's processing it like it's water." James watched the alien scientists scurry around their laboratory, their excitement growing with each failed attempt to harm him. They thought they were studying a fascinating specimen. They had no idea they were creating their own worst nightmare. His mind was clearer now than it had been in days. The constant fog of pain had lifted, replaced by an almost supernatural awareness of everything around him. He could hear conversations from other rooms, smell the chemical signatures of different toxins, even sense the electromagnetic fields from their equipment. Whatever was happening to his body was affecting his brain too. From his military training, James recognized some of their equipment. The centrifuge in the corner was separating compounds. The glass chamber near the window was growing cultures. The machine with the spinning lights was a molecular analyzer. These aliens might look different from humans, but science was science. He was beginning to understand exactly how their bioweapons worked. The most interesting discovery came by accident. During one particularly intense round of testing, James had strained against his restraints so hard that the metal straps creaked. But when he looked down, he realized something incredible. The alien metal wasn't just creaking, it was actually corroding where it touched his skin. His sweat had changed, his breath had changed, his entire body chemistry was becoming toxic to the Veilthians and their technology. The enhanced metabolism that was protecting him from their poisons was also producing byproducts that ate through their equipment. He was becoming a walking biological weapon himself. Dr. Kess was so focused on her readings that she didn't notice when James tested his theory. He breathed heavily on the strap across his chest, then waited. Within minutes, the metal began to weaken. Another few hours, and he would be able to break free entirely. Through the transparent walls of the laboratory, James could see deeper into the Veilthian ship. What he saw made his blood run cold. Even with all the changes happening to his body, rows upon rows of storage containers filled with different colored liquids. Each container was labeled with symbols he was starting to understand. Not just random toxins for experiments, but weapons of mass destruction. One section held green canisters marked with Earth's symbol. Another had blue containers labeled with the coordinates of New Sydney, humanity's largest colony outside the solar system. Yellow barrels bore the marking for Kepler Station, where over 50,000 human families lived and worked. The Veilthians weren't just studying bioweapons, they were preparing to use them. This entire ship was loaded with enough poison to wipe out every human settlement in this sector of space. James realized with growing horror that his capture wasn't random. The Veilthians had been planning a genocide, and they had grabbed him to test their weapons before the main attack. But they had made one critical mistake. They had given him 3 days to adapt to every single toxin in their arsenal. His body now carried the blueprints for immunity to everything they could throw at humanity. If he could somehow escape and get back to Earth, he could provide the genetic information needed to protect every human colony. The irony wasn't lost on him. The Veilthians thought they were perfecting their weapons by testing them on him. Instead, they were creating the one thing that could stop their entire plan. Dr. Kess approached with yet another syringe, this one containing a silver liquid he hadn't seen before. "This is our newest creation," she said with pride. "It attacks the genetic code itself. No species has ever survived it." James smiled as the needle went in. The silver toxin flowed into his bloodstream, and his enhanced immune system immediately went to work. Within minutes, his body had not only neutralized it, but had learned how to produce antibodies against it. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You just gave me exactly what I needed." The ship's lights dimmed to their night cycle as James waited patiently on the metal table. For 3 days, he had endured their experiments, but now his body had become something extraordinary. The metal restraints that once held him prisoner were now brittle and weak from his changed body chemistry. With one sharp movement, the corroded straps snapped like old rubber bands. James sat up slowly, testing his enhanced reflexes. Everything felt different. His muscles responded faster than ever before. His vision was sharper, able to pick out details in the dim lighting that would have been impossible days ago. Even his hearing had improved. He could detect the subtle difference between the breathing patterns of sleeping aliens and those still awake. Only 2 guards remained on duty during the night shift. James had been listening to their routine for hours. They made rounds every 30 minutes, but spent most of their time in the break room, playing some kind of alien card game. Perfect. He slipped off the table without making a sound. His bare feet found the cold floor, and he noticed something incredible. Where his feet touched, the metal began to discolor slightly. His entire body was now a walking chemical weapon against Veilthian technology. The laboratory door should have been locked, but James breathed on the electronic panel. His enhanced breath contained compounds that interfered with their computer systems. The lock clicked open within seconds. He smiled grimly. The aliens had no idea what they had created. Moving through the corridors was like being a ghost. The ship's biosecurity systems were designed to detect and eliminate unauthorized life forms. Poisonous gases would normally flood any area where an intruder was detected, but these same gases that would kill any other creature simply made James stronger. He walked through clouds of toxic vapor like they were morning mist. Emergency lights began flashing as the ship's computers tried to figure out why their security systems weren't working. James heard the 2 guards talking in panicked voices, but they were looking in all the wrong places. They expected an escaped prisoner to hide and run. They never imagined he would go deeper into their ship, hunting for their most dangerous secrets. The weapons laboratory was exactly where he had seen it from his prison table. Rows of containers filled with death, each one labeled for a different human colony. But James wasn't interested in the finished weapons. He needed their manufacturing equipment. The pathogen synthesizer stood in the center of the room, like a twisted altar. It was a machine designed to create new forms of biological death, controlled by computers that could modify genetic codes at the molecular level. For the Veilthians, it was the ultimate weapon. For James, it was about to become the ultimate tool of justice. His military training in biochemistry had taught him how these machines worked, in theory. But now, with his enhanced mind processing information faster than ever before, he understood the alien version instinctively. His fingers moved across the control panels, inputting commands with growing confidence. The machine hummed to life, its internal chambers beginning to brew something new. James wasn't creating a weapon of mass destruction. Instead, he was crafting something precise and targeted, a modified organism that would attack only Veilthian biology, something that would spread quickly but harm no other species. Within minutes, the synthesizer produced a small vial of clear liquid. James held it up to the light, watching it swirl. With deadly beauty, The Veilthians had spent years perfecting biological weapons. Now their own equipment had created their downfall. The ship's air circulation system was easy to find. James poured the contents of the vial into the main intake. Venton watched it get pulled into the ventilation network. Within seconds, his creation was flowing through every room, every corridor, every hiding place on the massive warship. The effects were immediate. Through the ship's internal communication system, James heard confused voices calling for help. Veilthian crew members were collapsing at their posts. Their own biological superiority turned against them. The organism he had created attacked their immune systems, shutting them down safely but completely. James made his way to the bridge, stepping over unconscious purple forms. The ship's captain was slumped over his command chair, breathing but unable to move. James activated the communication array and began broadcasting on all Veilthian military frequencies. "This is Lieutenant James Mitchell of Earth Defense Corps," he announced, his voice carrying across space to every ship in their invasion fleet. "Your bioweapons don't work on humans anymore. We adapt, we survive, and now we can create weapons that targets you specifically." He uploaded the genetic data from his transformed body, along with the formula he had just created. Every human colony would now have the tools they needed to defend themselves. "Consider this your only warning," James continued. "Leave human space immediately, or face the consequences of your own weapons turned against you." The news spread across human space faster than anyone thought possible. Within 6 hours of James's broadcast, every human colony, outpost, and research station had received the genetic data he transmitted. Scientists who had been preparing for the worst-case scenario suddenly found themselves holding the blueprints for complete immunity too. Veilthian Bio-Weapons. Dr. Patricia Wells, the chief medical officer at New Sydney Colony, couldn't believe what she was seeing on her computer screen. The genetic modifications in James's blood were unlike anything in medical history. His immune system had essentially rewritten itself, creating defenses against toxins that didn't even exist in nature. "This is impossible," she whispered to her research team. "One human body adapted to hundreds of different poisons in just 3 days. We're looking at evolutionary changes that should take thousands of years." But the proof was right there in the data. James's transformation wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. His enhanced metabolism, improved reflexes, and toxic resistance could be replicated using gene therapy techniques that human scientists had been developing for decades. What the Veilthians had intended as torture had accidentally human evolution by centuries. Meanwhile, the Veilthian Empire was falling apart. News of their failed genocide attempt reached their homeworlds within days. The mighty fleet that had been assembled to wipe out humanity was now floating helplessly in space. Their crews unconscious from James's counterweapon. Ambassador Vec, one of the few Veilthian leaders who had opposed the attack on humans, addressed their High Council in emergency session. "We have made a catastrophic error," he announced to the gathered officials. "We believed humans were weak because they lacked our natural toxins. We failed to understand that weakness and strength are not the same thing." The other council members shifted uncomfortably. For generations, the Veilthian Empire had expanded across the galaxy by using their biological weapons to clear entire planets without a fight. Species after species had fallen to their poisons. They had grown arrogant, believing themselves superior to all other life forms. "The humans have done something we thought impossible," Ambassador Vexrin continued. "They turned our greatest strengths into our greatest weakness, not through technology or superior firepower, but through pure adaptation. They survived what should have killed them, then used our own weapons against us." Reports were flooding in from across Veilthian space. Human colonies that should have been easy targets were now completely immune to their bioweapons. Worse yet, several human settlements had begun producing their own counterweapons based on James's formula. The hunters had become the hunted. Back on Earth, James found himself at the center of a storm of activity. Military scientists, medical researchers, and government officials all wanted to study his transformation. But James insisted on something else first: preparing humanity's defenses. The Veilthians won't give up easily, he warned the Earth Defense Council. They've built their entire civilization around biological warfare. When they realize their old weapons don't work, they'll try to develop new ones. His prediction proved correct. Within weeks, Veilthian research facilities were working around the clock to create toxins that could affect James's enhanced biology. But they had made a fundamental mistake. Every new weapon they tested on captured samples of his blood only, made the human defenses stronger. Human colonies began implementing what became known as the Mitchell Protocol. Using James's genetic template, they created immunity boosters that could protect entire populations. Children born after the Veilthian crisis carried natural resistance to biological warfare. Humanity was literally evolving in real time. The psychological impact was even more significant than the biological one. For the first time in galactic history, a supposedly primitive species had not only survived an attack by an advanced civilization, but had completely reversed the situation. Other alien races began viewing humans with a mixture of respect and fear. The Kepler Trade Alliance, which had previously excluded humans from major commercial deals, suddenly opened their doors. The Andromedans, who had been considering humans too primitive for diplomatic contact, requested formal meetings. Even the mysterious Quantum Collective, who rarely acknowledged other species, sent observers to human space. James himself became something of a legend, not just among humans, but throughout the galaxy. Alien children learned stories about the human who survived 1,000 poisons and turned them into strength. Diplomatic schools taught case studies about how underestimating human adaptability led to the Veilthian Empire's downfall. Years later, when historians wrote about this period, they called it the Great Reversal. The moment when humanity went from being seen as weak newcomers to being recognized as one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of their weapons or technology, but because of their infinite capacity to adapt, survive, and overcome. The Veilthians had tried to make an example of one human. Instead, they had created a legend that would inspire humanity's expansion across the stars for generations to come.